Hi guys, I'm Beth, this is Remark, and today we're going to talk about the Booktube Prize. So I am talking to you today in front of my own Bradford pear tree. It doesn't bear fruit, it smells like a fart, and every time there's a really bad storm, another piece of it breaks off. But gosh darn, whenever it is flowering, it sure is pretty. So I'm gonna take advantage of it for the moment that it looks like this. So I am so excited to be one of the judges for the Booktube Prize. This is a competition that's hosted by Robert over at Barter Hordes. I'm going to link to his video in the description below. And it's in which he has selected the year's best books and split them into different groups, assigned judges to rank those books from number 1 to number 6, favorite to least favorite. And then he's going to take all of those rankings together and move them forward into semifinals. So excited to be one of the judges. So the books that I was one of the judges for include The Overstory by Richard Powers, Rainbirds by Clarissa Goenawan, The Friend by Sigrid Nunez, Happiness by Aminatta Forna, Washington Black by Edugyan, and An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. All of them are good books. Here's how I ranked them. At number 6 is The Overstory by Richard Powers. Now, I was kind of surprised that this book did not resonate with me quite as much as it did with other readers. Some of the other reviews that I read thought that this book was just wonderful. It didn't really grab me the way that I thought it would. Now, it really centered around trees. Trees. That was the center of it. But around the trees, we got to know this cast of characters and their different, disparate lives and the way that the trees brought them together. It's almost like roots. The roots of the trees intermingled and grew together, and that's how the people ended up behaving. Their roots kind of grew together and intermingled, and their lives were woven together. It's a beautiful concept, and it also talks about trees and how they release chemical signals to one another, so that even if they're not outright speaking to one another, they're communicating and connecting on this deep biological level. It didn't dwell so much in the trees that it lost sight of the human aspect of the story, so that was good. And there was enough of the natural element there to kind of go beyond just the human element, so that was also good. But for some reason, it just wasn't the heart-grabbing story that it was for other people. Number 5, I ranked The Friend by Sigrid Nunez. I'm going to be coming out in a couple of weeks with a video review on this one. It revolves around a woman who has lost her longtime friend. Her friend has left unto her this Great Dane dog named Apollo, who nobody else wants. So in this tiny apartment, she and this humongous dog live together, none of them really knowing how to speak the language to each other, but both of them moving through their grief together. It's a beautiful concept and a beautiful construct of a way to process their griefs on different levels. The thing that made me kind of on this book is that I can't really tell if I liked it or not. I can't tell. So it goes on lots of different sort of stream of consciousness, flights of fancy, where this woman rambles about every single factoid she can think of in depth. So she might go pages into depth upon swans and how they're not always monogamous and their different habits and what the hell do swans have to do with this woman and the dog. It kind of lost me a little bit. Now, I live for trivia. I love it, but it seemed like the trivia in this book took away from the story, did not lend to the story. Yes, I could see it as a construct to help her move through her grief. I wasn't fully convinced. So, good book, can't decide if I fully liked it, so it gets number 5. Number 4 in my rankings was Washington Black by Edugyan. This book was really interesting. It follows a little boy named Wash who is befriended by a man named Titch. Titch is a white man. He's the slave owner's brother who believes in abolition of slavery and takes Wash under his wing, and they escape. Now, Wash can never quite rectify why Titch even took him on, especially since he eventually abandoned him. Was it the white savior complex? Was it because he truly saw something in Wash that really spoke to him? Wash really grows up struggling with that, and struggling with his relationship that he had prior to that with the woman Kit who had looked out for him, and how that relationship just kind of poof, went away just like that. It didn't grab me as much as the other books, but I did enjoy it very much. So speaking of grief and books about grief, number 3 in my rankings is Rainbirds by Clarissa Goenawan. This book was unlike books that I usually go for, but I found it deeply moving and beautiful. You know, it's not a book that really speeds forward or is heavy on the plot or anything like that. It kind of sits still in this man and his grief for his murdered sister. He kind of learns to live himself as opposed to learning just in the structure of him as her brother. It's hard to explain, but and the book kind of meanders a bit, but I feel like what it was this man slowly and quietly coming to terms with his grief. It was quietly moving and beautiful. I really loved it. So, really good book, Rainbirds by Clarissa Goenawan. Number 2 on my list is An American Marriage by Tayari Jones, and I loved this book. It's about a woman and a man who are married, and they have kind of this tempestuous, volatile, fireworky kind of marriage where their love runs hot and so do their tempers with one another. He's almost like this braggadocious peacock, and she is this nervous little hummingbird flitting around him. Who knows if their marriage would have made it for the long haul? Probably yes, maybe not. You know, he had a wandering eye. They never seemed fully comfortable with one another or with one another's families. We'll never know, because he was wrongly accused of murder and put away in prison. During that time, you could kind of see through the letters between Celestial and her husband that they started kind of growing apart a little bit and growing into their own lives separately. It's really tragic. It's a commentary on the justice system, a commentary on the relationships between men and women, and then just a really good picture of their families. I felt like I really knew their parents. I knew their lives. I knew their friends. I knew their careers. It was just, I felt like I really got to be inside with that family behind closed doors, and it was a really compelling novel. All right, I'm about out of light. I'm so sorry that this video is kind of darker than I meant it to be. I'm at the end of the day, and this is the only time I have to film. So the last book on my list is Happiness by Aminatta Forna. This book was really surprising to me in how much I liked it, because it's a construct that I usually don't go for. It's a lot more slow moving, it's a lot more sort of ambient, and the plot doesn't really move forward so much. It's more of characters coming together. That's pretty much the plot of the book. There's a little fox that's loose in the city. There's a woman named Jean who makes these rooftop urban gardens for people. There's a visiting professor named Attila who's a genius on psychiatry and PTSD. And somehow Jean and Attila manage to make this friendship and this deep connection with one another. During this connection, they're looking for Tano, the son of a woman that he had known who was caught up in immigration. It's just this whole cast of characters that somehow their paths cross, their lives intertwine, and they visit these extraordinary, exquisite kindnesses onto one another, and it's just so touching. I mean, of course there is some pushback in the book. Of course there are some evildoers or people who do bad things. But at the heart are a lot of these people who are connected by nothing more than just the human condition. Nothing more than just that they're people who happen to be in proximity to one another and manage to care and show these great just these great moments of humanity to one another. And it actually got me kind of teary at the end, which is very rare for me and my cynical heart. So it was just so touching. I'm going to read you a really short passage from the book that got me, that kind of sums it up. So this is the boy, the runaway boy. Jean nodded. Abdul high-fived Tano. Abdul's wife said something in their own language. Abdul nodded. The woman looked at Tano. She stepped forward and touched a hand to his cheek. The gesture, so small, was replete with kindness. This woman didn't even know the boy. All she knew was of the boy, and she just... this small, caring gesture that she gives him is really indicative of everything that you see in this book. Is these people who don't know each other, they don't owe each other anything, and still they come together and they show each other these great kindnesses, and it just... it makes me believe in humanity once again. It's beautiful, a beautiful book. So I was very happy to rank that as #1 on my list, Happiness by Aminatta Forna. So those are my rankings. I can't wait to see the other videos that are out by the different Booktube Prize judges, and I can't wait to see what moves on to the next round. Thank you so much for tuning in and dealing with this dying of the light. Hopefully the video isn't completely dark and unwatchable. If so, then sorry about that. Okay, thank you so much as always. I'll catch you next week. Bye. I just heard a creaking. I hope there's not an animal about to jump on my head.